Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Dr. Yasmin Ahmad, and today's topic would be about the lymphatic organs and the lymphatic tissues. Previously, you have studied about what is the lymph, what is present in the lymphatic system, and about the lymphatic vessels. So now you will see about what are those lymphatic organs and tissues. So these are classified in two types, the primary lymphatic organs and the secondary one. In primary, you will see the lymphatic or the lymphoid organs that contain the large number of lymphocytes, a type of white blood cells that play a very important role in the immunity. And these primary lymphocytic or the lymphatic organs are basically the red bone marrow and the thymus gland. So these are the two primary lymphatic organs, the red bone marrow and the thymus gland. And in this you see the lymphocytes basically originate and mature in these organs. So firstly you will see the first primary organ, lymphatic organ, the red bone marrow, is the site where the stem cells, basically the hematopoietic stem cells that are ever capable of dividing and producing blood cells, and some of these cells become the various types of WBCs like the neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, lymphocytes and the monocytes. And in a child, most bones have basically the red bone marrow, but in an adult it is limited to this, as it's limited to the sternum, vertebrae, ribs, part of the pelvic girdle and the proximal head of humerus and femur. So this would be about the red bone marrow. And the second primary lymphatic organ is the thymus. The thymus is basically a member of the both lymphatic and the endocrine system. The thymus is a small gland and it houses developing basically the lymphocyte, and it secretes a hormone that regulates their activity. It's basically located between the sternum and the aortic arch in superior mediastinum, and this thymus is very large in fetus, and as the fetus grows uh, it slightly regresses, and as grows slightly during the childhood when it becomes most active. So after the age 14 basically it begins to undergo involution. Involution mean it goes under shrinkage, so that it is quite small in adults. Okay, you can see in this picture where the thymus is present in the interior mediastinum. This is the thymus, right? You can see the trachea, the thyroid and the thymus, and on the other sides you can see the lungs. This is basically the location of thymus gland. Okay. In the secondary basically lymphatic organs, those are the secondary lymphatic organ are basically the major one, the spleen, the lymph nodes, and there are some other organ like the tonsils, Peyer's patches and the appendix. You can say them as a MALT. MALT means mucosa associated lymphoid tissues. So these organ, the other organ, tonsils, Peyer's patches, tonsils and the Peyer's patches and the appendix, these are basically associated in the mucosa associated lymphoid tissues. So all these secondary organs are the places basically where the lymphocytes encounter and bind with the antigen. This is a major function of these lymphatic organs and tissue. You can see in these the lymphocyte basically encounter and bind with the antigen, after which they proliferate and become actively engaged cells and enlarged cells. Okay, firstly you will see about the spleen. Spleen is the body largest lymphatic organ. Its parenchyma basically exhibit two types of tissues named for their appearance in fresh specimens, and that is the red pulp and the white pulp. In red pulp, you will see it consists of the sinuses gorged within the concentrated erythrocytes, and in the white pulp, it consists of the lymphocytes and the macrophages that are aggregated like sleeves along the small branches of the splenic artery. Okay. Spleen is basically a largest lymphatic organ that is present in the left hypochondric region of the abdominal cavity between the fundus of stomach and the diaphragm. You will see, I can show you the picture of it. Okay. Basically, this is a picture in which you can see the spleen, the splenic vessels. You can see the spleen. These are the splenic vessels, right? And in which you can see that it's a 5-inch organ between the stomach and the diaphragm, as just said you. And this hilus contain basically the blood and the lymphatic vessels, white pulp, and again here it's written over here that it contains the white pulp and the red pulp. White is basically because of the lymphatic tissue, because of the lymphocytes and macrophages, and red pulp is basically due to the venous sinuses filled with the blood or the erythrocyte and the splenic tissue or the splenic cords. So you will see the some function of spleen, and the function of basically the red pulp is that it helps in removal of damaged blood cells, or in the storage of platelets, or in the production of blood cells during the fetal life. These are some important function of basically the red pulp of the spleen. And white pulp helps in the lymphocyte and macrophages destroy the foreign substances. Okay. So some other function we will see over here, that it produces the blood cells in the fetus and may resume this role in adult as well, and in the event of extreme anemia basically. So it also monitors the blood for the foreign antigens, like much like the lymph nodes do the lymph. And in another function shows that lymphocytes and macrophages of the white pulp are quick to detect the foreign antigens in the blood and immediately activate the immune reactions. The spleen basically also compensate for excessive blood volume, right? For that purpose, it functions as the storage of blood as well, by transferring the plasma from the bloodstream into the lymphatic system. Okay. And a person can live without a spleen, but it is somewhat more vulnerable to infections. So when you will see the functions of spleen, you can say about the phagocytosis. It helps in the storage of blood and in the immune responses and in the process of erythropoiesis as well. Okay. And the other organ or the other tissue, secondary lymphatic tissue, you will see about the lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are structurally bean-shaped organ found in the cluster along the distribution of lymph channels of the body. Every tissue is supplied by blood vessel is supplied by the lymphatic, except the placenta and the brain. These two are the exception cases where the lymphatic is not present. And I'm repeating it again. Every tissue supplied by the blood vessel is supplied by the lymphatics, except the placenta and the brain. And there are over 800 lymph nodes in the body, and around 300 are located in the head and neck. Before we will see the structure of lymph node, we will see in the body where the important lymph nodes are present. Okay, this is a picture in which you can see about the lymph nodes that are present in the whole body, right? And you can see the lymph from the upper limb basically passes through the nodes situated in the elbow region, then through the deep and superficial nodes. And you can see the lymph from the head and neck passes through the deep and superficial cervical group of nodes. And lymph from the organ and tissues in thoracic cavity drains through the nodes situated close to the mediastinum, large airways and esophagus and chest wall. And lymph from the breast base also passes through the axillary node, and the lymph from the pelvic and abdominal cavities passes through many lymph nodes before entering the cisterna chyli. You can see here the cisterna chyli as well. And pelvic and abdominal nodes are basically situated in association with the blood vessels supplying the organ, and the close to the main arteries that are basically the aorta and the external and internal iliac arteries. Okay. And again you will see that the lymph from the lower limb drains through the deep and superficial nodes, superficial iliac nodes. Okay, so this is a brief description of the lymphatic drainage throughout the body. Now you will see about the structure of lymph. Okay. In this basically you will see the structure of lymph node. Lymph node is an elongated or bean-shaped structure, usually less than 3 cm long, often with an indentation called the hilum on one side. Right? This is the hilum present. This is in the center is present the hilum. Okay. And it is enclosed in a fibrous capsule with extensions. These extensions are called as trabeculæ that completely divide the interior of node into compartment. You can see these trabeculæ that are dividing the inner interior part of the node into compartments. The interior consists of the further two things, of the reticular connective tissue, right, and the parenchyma of lymphocyte and antigen presenting cell, the APCs. The stroma and the parenchyma, basically the interior consists of these two. Again you see that between the capsule and parenchyma is a narrow space. Between the capsule and parenchyma there is a narrow space that's known as the subcapsular sinus, which basically contain the reticular fiber, macrophages and dendritic cells. So the parenchyma is further divided into the outer cortex and near the hilum into the inner medulla. The cortex consists mainly of the ovoid lymphatic nodules, and when the lymph node is fighting a pathogen, these nodules basically acquire the light staining germinal centers where the beta cells multiply and differentiate into plasma cell, and that further help in the process of immunity. Okay, again you can see the medulla consists of largely of branching network of medullary cords, right? These are the medullary cords, and composed of lymphocyte, plasma cell, macrophages, reticular cells and reticular fibers. So the lymph node is basically in bottleneck that slows down the lymph flow and allows the time for cleansing it of the foreign material or the foreign particle. The macrophages and the reticular cells of the sinuses remove about the 99 of the impurities before the lymph leaves that particular node. On its way to the bloodstream, the lymph flows through one lymph node after another and thus become quite thoroughly cleansed of most of the impurities. Okay. So you can see that these there are superficial and the deep nodes, and superficial nodes are located in the subcutaneous connective tissues, and deeper nodes lie basically beneath the fascia and the muscle within the various body cavities. So they are numerous and tiny, but some of have sizes as large as 0.5 to 1 cm in diameter. The superficial nodes are the gateways for assessing the health of the entire lymphatic system. Okay, again in another picture you can see about the lymph nodes. This is another picture of the lymph nodes. You can see basically the flow is also in one direction. Efferent vessels, there are 4 to 5. They can be basically not necessarily, but there may be 4 to 5 efferent vessels that leads to the sinus that lead in, and the sinuses lead to efferent. There is only always a one efferent vessel that exit at hilus. So only nodes filter the lymph. Okay, now we will start the about some pathological conditions. There are some pathology. You can see here from your book, there are some lymph vessel pathologies. Some terms are being used like the lymphangitis. Lymphangitis means there is, when there is the word itis is present, it means there is an inflammation. So inflammation of the lymph vessel is known as lymphangitis. Lymphadenitis means there is an infection or the inflammation of the lymph node. Lymphadenopathy means there is enlargement of the lymph node, and when there is enlargement of the spleen, the term is may be called as splenomegaly. And there is another term, lymphedema. Lymphodema basically called as swelling in the tissue whose lymphatic drainage has been obstructed in some way. So these are some terms that are being used in the pathology of lymph vessels. Okay, now we will see about the lymphadenopathy, as we have earlier seen in from your textbook, that it's basically the enlargement of the lymph node. It may be an incidental finding in patients being examined for various reasons, and it may be a presenting sign or the symptom of the patient illness. So when there is enlargement of any lymph node, we can feel it like a soft, flat submandibular node are often basically palpable in healthy children and young adults. So healthy adults may have palpable inguinal nodes also for up to 2 centimeter, which are considered normal. So lymphadenopathy is also further classified as the generalized and or the localized or the regional lymphadenopathy. In generalized, you can see that it has been defined as involvement of 3 or more non-contagious lymph node areas. And this generalized lymphadenopathy is basically frequently associated with the non-malignant disorders, like there are some infections like infectious mononucleosis. This is due to the Epstein-Barr virus or the other type of viruses like cytomegalovirus or toxoplasmosis, systemic lupus erythematosus, and other type of mixed connective tissue disease. And acute and chronic lymphocytic leukemias and malignant lymphoma also produce the generalized adenopathy. When we will talk about the localized or the regional lymphadenopathy, it basically implies the involvement of single anatomic area, and the site of localized or regional adenopathy may provide a useful clue about the cause. Like if you see the occipital adenopathy, when there is occipital adenopathy, it often reflects an infection of the scalp. And when there is periauricular adenopathy, like in front of the ear, it accompanies like there would be any conjunctival infection or any kind of cat scratch disease. So these are some immunological diseases. Like the autoimmune diseases, in which we can see the lymphadenopathy, enlargement of the different group of nodes, lymph nodes, and there are some malignant diseases as well. Some of them we will study later. The Hodgkin disease and the non-Hodgkin lymphomas. These are some malignant disease like tumor associated, in which the lymph nodes are enlarged. There are some lipid storage diseases as well. There are endocrine diseases such as hypothyroidism, and thyroiditis, adrenal insufficiencies. Okay, now we will see what is the lymphoma means. Lymphoma basically is a clonal proliferation of the lymphoid cells of various degree of maturity within a single organ, or in a simple word you can see it's a cancer of the lymphatic cells. And it may be the nodal and it may be extranodal. Nodal mean it is confined to the only lymph node, and extranodal it is the extranodal other side other than the node is also involved. In nodal case, like when there is involvement of the node, 2 by 3 of the lymphomas tumor cells which arises from the lymph node. Okay, and in extranodal, what are those tumors like spleen, skin, stomach, intestine, and mediastinum and brain are involved in extranodal cases. So, lymphomas are basically classified into two main subtypes. The Hodgkin lymphoma, in your book there is written as the Hodgkin lymphoma and the non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and the non-Hodgkin further subdivided into the beta cell lymphoma and the T cell lymphoma. Okay, the Hodgkin lymphoma, well, in Hodgkin lymphoma you can see that it's a progressive painless enlargement of the lymph nodes throughout the body as the lymphoid tissue within them proliferate. So the disease is malignant and cause is basically unknown in this condition. So there are, again we can see the lymphoid malignant tumor characterized by the presence of multinucleated giant cells known as the Reed-Sternberg cells, and their mononuclear analogies. Okay, on histology you can see Reed-Sternberg cells, that is characteristic features of this Hodgkin lymphoma. A neoplastic transformation of the lymphocyte, particularly in the lymph node. Again, another definition of Hodgkin lymphoma, and it's basically characterized by the presence of Reed-Sternberg cells on histology, spreading in orderly fashion to contiguous lymph nodes, right? Like you can say when the Hodgkin lymphoma starts in the cervical lymph node, and it may spread first to the supraclavicular node, then to the axillary node in a orderly fashion, orderly mannered. I'm again telling you that this is the Reed-Sternberg cells, characteristic feature on histology for the Hodgkin lymphomas. Hallmark of disease, cells with the mirror image nuclei and the prominent eosinophil. You don't need to memorize the histological feature of this cells, but you must be knowing about what this is the hallmark of the disease and what type of prominent cells present in the Hodgkin lymphoma are the Reed-Sternberg cells. These are further classification you don't need to memorize, and just you must be knowing that there are important classification in the Hodgkin lymphoma, that lymphocytic predominant has the best prognosis, has the best effectiveness, and the lymphocytic depleted type has the worst prognosis. Okay. Okay, and the non-Hodgkin lymphoma, we can say that in non-Hodgkin lymphoma, the multiple myeloma and the Burkitt lymphoma basically may occur in any lymphoid tissue and in bone marrow. So they are classified according to the cell type involved and the degree of malignancy, like there may be a low, intermediate or high grade of involvement present in the non-Hodgkin lymphoma. You can see here that neoplastic transformation of either B or T cells, lineage of lymphatic cell in which the histogenic source of which are the cells of lymphoid germ cell hematopoiesis, and this causes the accumulation of neoplastic cell in both the lymph node as well as more often diffusely in the extra lymphatic organs. We have just studied the extra lymphatic organs and the bloodstream. In non-Hodgkin lymphoma, there are no Reed-Sternberg cells. These are further subtypes of non-Hodgkin lymphoma: Burkitt lymphoma, lymphoblastic lymphoma, diffuse large B cells, anaplastic large. You don't need to memorize these subtypes, but you must be knowing about there are further classification according to the B cell types and the T cell types. Okay. So you can now see that when there is enlargement of spleen, the term is known as splenomegaly, and the cause of it, basically a clinically palpable spleen may have many causes due to the infection may be acute or chronic. If there is acute infection, that may be the septic shock and infective endocarditis, chronic infection like the tuberculosis, and there may be parasitic infection as well like malaria, Kala-Azar and schistosomiasis. And the cause may be because of any inflammation like the autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, SLE. These are all the autoimmune disease in which there is inflammation. The cause is the inflammation of the spleen. And there may be any hematological condition as well. In the hemolytic anemia, the splenomegaly is present. And there are some other conditions like the storage diseases, that may be glycogen storage disease, that may be the lipid storage diseases. In that also there is massive splenomegaly. Okay. There are some other condition in your book that is about when you see that there is disease of the thymus gland, and enlargement of the gland is basically associated with some of the autoimmune disease and Addison disease. Tumor of this thymus gland is basically very rare, and there may be a pressure effect by the enlargement of this gland, and that may interfere with the function of the adjacent structures, like most importantly the trachea present on the side and the esophagus. So this is the disease. There is basically no specific disease of thymus gland, but there may be some other disease, secondary diseases that causes the disease of thymus gland. So this is all about today's lecture. Thank you so much.